And boom, girl. Hi, Megan.
Hi, how are you, Roxy?
I'm so happy to be with you. There are some days where I'm in a podcast with friends like you. It feels like, oh, I just get to hang out with a girlfriend, and it feels so good, especially these days because, it doesn't happen as much these
No,
days. Everything
not
that's
enough.
not enough, right? And so, this is going to be great because we get to dig into you and your genius, and there's so much to tap in there, but also it's so selfishly great for me that I just get this moment of time to just hang out with you. How are you?
I know, even though we talked like a week or two ago, but it's still not enough.
I know. Well, and it's so, obviously, uh, I think it's been a month now since my calf injury. And you have been so supportive, and I've been trying to keep up with what you've showed me. But it's interesting because you're always kind of with me, especially right now while I'm really recovering and getting this better. But honestly, you are more with me than you realize. I'm an athlete, I'm active, and an important part of not just even, you don't have to be an athlete, obviously, but mobility, right? And keeping this body, this system mobile, agile, like in one of my favorite words is fluidity, right? And it all
Mm-hmm.
kind of goes together, right? So um, I often think about you as a kind of reminder for me to keep up with this work that's so important. So I'm excited. I want to dive into all of this with you. I actually would love to start by asking you, what does unlock your potential mean?
Ooh, that's a good one. So when I was thinking of like a name for a company, like, and because of Primal Strength, physical therapy,
Mhm.
for me, it's when we were born, like if you look at little kids, when they squat, when they breathe, it's just perfect. And they do it so effortlessly. Like when they just drop in a squat up and down. I'm like, we all had that ability and we all lose it
Yeah.
over time.
Yeah.
So for me, primal strength is getting back to our primal patterns and then unlocking our potential. We all had it in there. We've just messed it up over the years and don't realize what we're really capable of. And I've realized even more since I came up with that slogan. In
Mhm.
the beginning, it was more, I was thinking of mechanical, physical, and it's so much more now. Like
Yeah.
our physical is dependent on our mindset, like
Mhm.
like how we feel, whether it be how we move, physically, mentally, spiritually. Like we have so much more available
Mhm.
that sometimes we just need some guidance to tap into it. So for me, even though I'm a PT and people are coming to me when like there's pain,
Mhm.
there's so many other aspects of their life that we can unlock by combining the physical with the mental, the mindset, the spirituality, whatever it may be that that
Mhm.
person believes in, and looking at it as a whole to really take us to the next level.
So that was so epic because, going into this conversation, thinking, getting ready basically to have this talk with you. Yes, on the one hand, you are a functional, intuitive physical therapist. You're an absolute badass. You're an athlete. And so there's a lot to tap into in that region. But for me, I'm thinking not just in that sense with you. I'm looking at you, first of all, you are a path creator. You are someone who has continuously listened to this inner guidance system, right? Your passions, you've moved from the East Coast, from Jersey to San Diego. Even in how you put yourself through school, but a lot of from what I've learned, a lot of your approach to your business, it actually was almost like a step away from school. It was more of you guiding yourself from a place of again, it's like passion to develop your practice in the way that you have. And so for me, I'm like, yeah, okay, here's a strong ass woman, a path creator, someone who has bet on herself, someone who, and we're going to get into so many layers here. There's so much mindset, and that's my jam, that's my coaching, that's my teaching. But what I really want to do in this conversation with you is pull on the strings, kind of like the lines between the lines. When I think about mobility. When I think about posture, I mean, let's just posture, right? Like one of the greatest things my mom said to me when I was younger was look at life straight in the eyes, walk with your head up, like shoulders back. And we know this is like a real thing. And I want you to actually talk about this. But body posture, the
Mhm.
way we carry ourselves isn't just a language to the external, it's a language to ourselves, but most people aren't even aware of that. Let's go there.
All right. I mean, we're going to be tapping into subconscious then. Like, because
Mm,
some people never realize it. And
yeah,
I mean, and the only reason I'm at where I am today is for the hardships and the trials and all the stuff that we had to get to learn these things. Like,
right.
I mean, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. Wow, we're getting old. So it could be even 30 years ago. um, what we went through to get to that. Like, over the years, like when a client walks in the room, just their body language alone and how they present and how they sit, I could tell, sometimes I get that gut feeling, but you can
Mhm,
just see, they're struggling and it might not even be physical.
right.
Body language is huge, whether it's our own and what
Mhm,
we're dealing with or someone else's. And then that's the other thing, being a body worker and PT world, like energy is huge, where I have to be mindful that I'm not picking up other people's energy.
totally.
I thought
Mhm,
that was all BS. Like, I'm an ortho sports PT. I just deal with the body. I'm ortho, whatever the knee hurts, we're working on this. And I would wonder at the end of the day when I'd have a lot of I used to call them my crazy patients. They
mhm.
just had a lot going on in their life.
Yeah.
Uh, at the end of the day, why was I so drained? Why was I exhausted? And I was like, oh, it's a real thing. Like, their energy is coming off on me and
Mhm.
it's draining me. I'm
Yep.
like, I don't know how they deal with that every day, but I can't even deal with it just for one day.
Right.
Um, and it's so true. Like when you just said, stand up tall, shoulders up, back, whatever it may be. Like, I was not that kid growing up. I was the one that was made fun of. I was the one that would like go home crying every day, went through all that stuff where my body language, if I looked at it back then, was probably a lot different than what it is now.
What was happening, just to tap into that for a minute, if you don't mind, I'm curious, because everyone who looks at you now or knows you now, you see a strong ass, capable woman. But adversity is so it's so important. So what was happening in that period of your life?
I mean, I came from a great childhood. I had
Mhm.
everything I ever needed and wanted. I was great at sports. Like, that's where I excelled and stuff, but I was just never comfortable in my own skin.
Okay.
Never felt comfortable around other people. Never felt comfortable even like talking to guys or any of that kind of stuff growing
Mhm.
up. And then eventually I found drugs and alcohol, and that was
Mhm.
gave me the courage, like that liquid courage, if you wanted to call it back then. I'm like, oh, if I just have a few drinks, I feel so much more comfortable. And that became eventually a crutch.
Yeah.
And for me, and I don't know if you even knew, like, I'm 17 years sober. And
Yeah.
it's something that, that is something I don't always talk about, but I'll open
Mhm.
up to people about it sometimes. Like,
Mhm.
I was a chameleon years ago. I used to blend into whatever environment I was in to fit in, to make sure I wasn't hurting other people. Meanwhile, I'm like, why am I doing this to myself? Like, this isn't what I want. But I
Yeah.
was doing what I thought everyone else wanted me to do. Like,
Mhm.
went to a really good school. Like, I loved it, played field hockey, had a blast, but I was like, oh, I think I need to be a finance major. That's what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to work on Wall Street. Meanwhile, working at a desk in New York City, I was miserable.
Oh, yeah.
And so it took till when I was 23, I think.
Mhm.
And then I was just like, what am I doing? Like, what do I want to do? And then
Mhm.
that's where the shift happened. Like, no more drugs and alcohol, like, got sober. And then everything was okay. What do I want? What's going to make me happy? Working internal on me. And then
Mhm.
all of a sudden you just see the shift and everyone's like, who are you? We don't even know who you are anymore.
I love that.
So I do have to attribute it to getting sober. Um,
Yeah.
it's a big thing because then I didn't have this other substance that was, I was a different person when I did that.
100%. Yeah, I
Um,
mean, I mean, I love that, and thank you for sharing that. No, and it's so important, to actually display these examples of what a human is capable of doing when they decide, right? Because again, like if somebody just knew you in your life now and had no idea of that, they would never piece that together,
yeah,
right? But it's important to show that that is possible, that when you decide and you get clear on the direction that you really want to operate your life from and to, you can make those changes. So I love that. And I think it's also important to, I talk about authenticity all the time. It's maybe a superpower of mine. And I only say that because I see, especially as a coach now, it's like, it's one of the fucking hardest things for people to operate from. Like, and it's a core value of mine. Really, it's attached to my core value that is autonomy. It's like, no, you deciding what is best for me is not going to fucking reign over what I know and believe and trust, even if it's scary and I don't know what's coming next. Like, I moved to New York from Hawaii and I had no fucking idea. I was like, I have no game plan. I just know I got to be here. And I listened. And in hindsight, I look back, I'm like, ooh, that was pretty brave. But in the moment, it was just me operating from my most authentic self. So that's also something I always love to highlight. So I love that you just threw that in here. So, going back there. So when you get to that place and now you're sober, and now I'm sure, obviously there's always going to be challenges. Being an entrepreneur is a challenge, right? But the challenges when you're operating from that state of, this is what I want to do, what I value, what is true to me. I'm operating from this. Those challenges it's just a different kind of challenge, right?
100%. Like when I was back east and I worked for a bigger corporation, and it was like, they wanted me treating a certain way. They wanted me seeing 20 plus people a day, 2 people at a time. And for me, it wasn't like I couldn't treat the way I wanted to. I feel like I wasn't doing the best for my clients. And for me, that's so important. Like I like to help people. Like I consider myself a healer, an empath, like energy stuff, all that. I'm just been finally able to tap into, and I couldn't do it the way it was set up. So it was scary as hell. I was dating someone at the time, and we were sitting at a Whole Foods, and we had basically a brown paper bag from French fries on there. And we were just writing out words about what I felt my business would be. And basically, I didn't have the courage to do it on my own. I wanted to do it, and I was getting to that jumping off point, but it took someone else helping me see what I was capable of to do it, and finally giving me a little opening to say, hey, why don't you open up here? And so I took that leap of faith, and I still stayed part-time at the other place because I did the security, but opened up part-time there in New Jersey and had that practice, and realizing I can do it on my own. I can treat the way I want to. I could spend a whole hour with my client and not be distracted by all this other stuff. And I was like, this is what I want to do. And it was one of those things, but I had come out here to San Diego in like 2010 or 11, 2011 for a course. And I was like, why the heck do I live in New Jersey? I was like, it was winter. I hate the cold. And it was raining here though. It like hardly ever rains, but it was raining. And I'm like, this is still better than Jersey.
It's like warm rain.
It always felt like home. I just started every year. I'd find an excuse to come out here for a course or something, and started making friends out here. And every single trip I would like postpone coming back. Like I'd move my flight a day, move my flight another day. And all the girls I worked with were like, will you just stay? Just tell us you're not coming home. You're happier there. You can always come back home. And I was like, you're right. Like just being out here, and everyone's like, you're crazy to pack everything up and move across the country by yourself.
Yeah.
But something in me, like this just felt like home. And it always had from the day I came out here. And it's hard being away from family, like especially a huge family, but I can always go home and visit them. They can come and visit me. But it's something where I just had to follow that, where I would have never had the courage years ago to do that. I would have done what other people thought I should be doing instead of what I truly believed.
And wouldn't you say too, I love all that. It's, I've done it, like I said, in my own life, and it's so important. One of the things I always talk about is self-trust. And I always say like, that shit has to be earned. Like there's no handouts there. How do you earn it? You bet on yourself. You move into the uncertain terrain from this place of, I just know, I feel, I'm going to trust, I'm going to take a chance. I'm willing to even, whatever, like if I fail, even I got to try. But that's how you build trust. And it's an interesting thing. It's like, if you're only ever listening to somebody else's, I don't even care if it's your family, your partner, valued opinions, but if you're only operating from what they think is best for you, well, how do you develop self capital SELF, trust. You fucking can't. So maybe talk about that a little bit and how, these steps that you took, these chances, this kind of inspired action helped to develop your self-trust.
Like, I just had a flashback to sitting in Hoboken in 2004. And I was reading like a daily devotion or something, and it just said, sometimes you just have to take that leap of faith, even though you can't see the step. And that's something that I always remember. Like, I have to try, like, as scary and as uncomfortable as it is. And that was actually, when I read that, it was the day I was trying to decide if I was going to break up with someone.
Wow.
And I was like, I guess I just have to do it. I don't know if it's the right answer. I just have to make a decision. And then there's sometimes for me where I can get really into my head with stuff. And sometimes for me is not making a decision. Like, the decision is to not do anything because I'm letting my head go crazy sometimes. So I think, like you said, it's like, you just have to do it sometimes, and you just learn on the way down. Like, start the business, just start seeing people, like, depending on what you're doing, have like a side little hustle or a side gig that you're going to get a paycheck from, and then work on your, if you want to call it passion project or whatever that you feel like you're meant to be doing. That's kind of what I did. I took a per diem position out here, knowing just 2 days a week it was like 20 miles away, just so I knew there wouldn't be a conflict of interest when it came to, I knew down the road, I wanted to do my own thing. But I think that carries over to every other aspect of our life. For me, it's having some faith, and for me, taking the leap of faith, even though I don't know the answers sometime, and just figuring out, for 40 years, I've done okay. Like, I actually work a lot less now and make the same or a lot more than what I did when I was back East. And, it's amazing. And I don't think I could ever go back to working for someone else, because I need that ability to be able to treat the way I want to be able to, like, have the say, and this is what I think is best for you, instead of it being dictated by someone else.
Oh, I couldn't even imagine you working for somebody else. And the reason why is because I think about autonomy and mastery, and you are, it's like you're a thought leader. You are an authoritative in this space. You have your own unique approach, and that you can't, what's enclosed, what's the word I'm looking for people watching? I'm just putting, you can't put that in a box. And it would be a disservice, I think, to the world for you to be operating under somebody else's kind of zone of genius, because your zone of
cookie cutter approach, like, you can't.
Yeah. So something I learned about you that I think would be great to talk about too, and it kind of goes right where we were, is active release therapy. That was like would you say that was a turning point, or because was that the course that you initially took in San Diego that started to?
Okay. So active release, I had someone do it to me when I was injured back in 2004.
Got it.
And I was like thinking, maybe I want to go into healthcare, whatever. And it made such a big difference. Like, I went from not being able to run, getting off the bike, doing triathlons, to like 4 sessions and it was gone, whatever the pain was.
What can you briefly, is there a way to explain it, to break it down just for those people who don't?
So it's a soft tissue technique. Going in, and you're just going in on, like, if I was working on the muscle, I'm going in and doing, like, some people say pin and stretch. It's not pin and stretch, but it's more of, you're going in, you're using hands, you're using movement at the same time to clean up tissue glide. So when I first started practicing, I knew, I was like, okay, I want to get certified in all that. Got certified in all that. That was my jam. It was beating up my hands though, like crazy. Then I started to learn more that, maybe an area of the body's tight because it's working well, or maybe an area of the body's tight because it's protecting it from something else that's like, maybe it's not working well. So it's like, hey, I don't feel safe, I'm going to tighten up. So that was when there was a light bulb moment that, like, ART is amazing, but it was just one piece of the puzzle for me. So now it's just like one tool in my toolbox, because so many people are like, oh, my hip flexors are tight, I want you to release my psoas.
Yeah.
Like, well, no, I'm not just going to go and release your psoas. I need to test it first. So I need to go in, is it tight and weak, or is it tight and strong? If it's tight and strong, okay, we can release it. And we're not really releasing, we're kind of communicating with the brain. But you give the right information to the brain's like, okay, I'll let it relax. But if it's tight and weak, and I just go in and do some work on it, you might be taking away that person's protective mechanisms.
So
So,
interesting.
so people come into me, they're like, this always feels tight. I stretch it, it keeps tightening back up. That right there is a little light bulb saying, hey, we need to look somewhere else, or we actually maybe need to strengthen it, and then it will actually loosen. So
Wow.
I went from doing ART on, I still do it almost on everyone, but doing it
Yeah.
a lot more, to it just being one portion of a treatment session. So
That's
it's kind of
amazing.
evolved over the years, where it's like I use the ART, I use the DNS, I use the NKT, I use like all these different things, and I kind of morphed it into my own
Yeah,
kind
your own concoction,
of, yeah,
your own
whatever you call it.
witchcraft.
Yeah. When they say the witch doctor, they're like, go see the witch doctor. I'm like, if you
Yeah.
want to see that, that's fine.
Oh
But
my gosh. What would you say right now? Because when I think, first of all, okay, let me say this. When I think about mobility work, even just a physical therapist, I mean, I think the larger uh, part of this kind of the when people think about a physical therapist, they're thinking, I got injured and I need to see a therapist to rehabilitate.
yeah,
Um, when I think about someone like yourself, a PT, especially the way that you approach your business, I actually think about longevity. I don't think necessarily about, oh, see Megan when you're injured. I mean, for sure. I mean, I just like got injured and I'm like, Megan. But it's more about like, this is going to sound funny, but it's totally right. But it's like lubrication for life. It's like, how do you fucking stay?
100%.
Right?
No, it's 100% what it is. It's like, how
Right.
can we preserve what we have without beating it up, feel better,
Yeah.
do better, live
Yeah.
better?
Right.
So many people think, oh, I'm hurt, I need to go to PT, I need a prescription, I need to go through insurance. I'm like, you can do that, but you're probably going to go to one of those cookie cutter practices that if your knee hurts, they're only looking at your knee. And guess what?
Right.
It's probably not your knee. It's probably your core, your hip, your other shoulder. It could be even freaking your jaw. But people don't realize, or they just know that it hurts here. And
Yeah.
history kind of says, okay, you're hurt, go to PT. For
Right.
me, I rather see people before they get hurt. Like, I look at it as, I wish everyone would come to me as a physical. Like, we go to the doctor and get lab work. Well, why wouldn't you come to me and let me test everything, see how you move, clean up compensatory patterns that you probably have from, oh, I sprained my ankle, but I never did anything about it. But you changed how you walked for a couple of weeks,
Yeah.
which created some patterns.
Mhm.
Or you had chronic anxiety. Now, last year, you bet probably half of the freaking country,
Yeah.
anxiety. Just anxiety alone changes our subconscious breathing pattern. We
Mm.
change our subconscious breathing pattern, we destabilize our core, we start breathing more shallow, we start moving differently. Next thing you know, you're wondering why your knee or your back hurts. Well, maybe it's just your breathing.
Right.
So
That's
like, I was
amazing.
talking about this with Dr. Gabrielle
Yeah.
and Dr. Gabrielle Lyons, like, doing a movement physical for everyone. Like, sometimes your stomach issues, or sometimes some of that like brain fog, or how you're not feeling well, could it be actually a breathing and movement dysfunction? So
Yeah.
coming up with, and that's what I've been doing more of lately, is doing virtuals of doing a movement physical. What do I see needs to be fixed,
Yeah.
changed, giving them some exercises. And then, it's been great because you can tap into so many things
Yep.
just by assessing movement.
I love this so much. I think there's so much value to this. And I think, I think a lot of it comes down to a lack of awareness.
Yeah.
It's not like the conversation around physical therapy it has been in this regard, not at all. It's like injury therapy, but like you said, cookie cutter. But when we zoom out and we go, hold on, we're in this, I always say, like, I'm in this body, I'm in me until I'm out of here, right? So the goal is to feel as excellent as I can, and obviously to perform as excellent as I can for as long as I can in my life. And when we think about keeping our joints, our posture, mobility, like just everything stable and just fluid and not stiff, like rigidity, right? If I think about 2020, it's like rigidity.
Yeah.
I mean, the compounding effects of rigidity is fucking bad, right? Like mind, emotion, body. And what I love is that you bring the whole thing together. You are holistic. When did this because I know that you frame yourself and it's so appropriate, but I think it's also worthy of talking about when you say, you were an intuitive PT. When did that really surface for you?
I think I knew. So I've been practicing, what are we, 21? So I've been practicing 12 years now. And I think the
Mhm.
first 4 or 5 years, it was just like, you need to get the reps in. So I was happy to be in a high volume clinic and I was just seeing everything. But things just weren't always making sense. I'm like, I think there's more to it. Like I felt like I was missing something. And I started taking some other courses. And it's funny, we talked about what people think PT is. Like a lot of my mentors are actually chiropractors. And when you think of a chiropractor, you think you're just going to go and get adjusted. And half
Yeah.
of these chiropractors that are my mentors, they hardly adjust anymore. They will every once in a while, but they kind of look at the same thing at how I look at it. It's looking at the whole body,
Yeah.
looking at our experiences, looking at our traumas, looking at anything that's happened in our past. Anyone that knows me knows I love scars because scars are trauma. So any surgery ever, like my clients would be like, oh, none that matter. I'm like, guess what? They all matter. So tell me, like,
Yeah.
what's going on here? And people will be shocked to see how a scar from 20 years ago changed their patterns. And that's why their pain out of nowhere this past year was not out of nowhere. It was something in patterning. And maybe for them, it just took 20 years for it to get to the point of how they're presenting. So I always knew there was like a bigger picture. And I always knew there was maybe 2 years ago, and once again, from Dr. Lyons had introduced me to someone. We were out to dinner one night. And so him and I started talking, and we actually started talking about stuff and just talking about injuries and different things. And he's like, did you ever forgive yourself? And I was like, what?
Mm.
He's like, did you ever forgive yourself for not knowing what you needed to do to take care of that? Like
Mhm.
you didn't know you weren't doing the right stuff, or you didn't know how to truly forgive yourself for not being present in the moment. And that's why you got injured.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
that was when I had another big aha moment, when I had to forgive myself for
Mhm.
not being present the day I got in a big bike crash, because I wasn't present. I was not paying attention and ended up getting in a crash and shattered my shoulder and all this stuff, and not realizing I was holding on to that for years. And I had gone to a couple of different practitioners and they kept getting stuck. Whenever they work around my shoulder, they kept saying there was some past trauma involved.
Wow.
I don't know what you're talking about. She's like, well, maybe think about the sound of the accident. And so if
Okay.
I would think about the sound of the accident, my shoulder would test differently. I'm like,
Wow.
this is interesting. So then that's when I really started realizing there was so much more involved to
Yeah.
how our bodies present,
Yep.
where I'll play with people's thoughts, or I'll play with my thoughts while I'm working on them and see if it changes tests. I'll make them change their thoughts to a negative thought versus a positive thought, and it will
Mhm.
change the test. So that's just one way I can tap into a client to let them know your thoughts are more powerful than you believe. Like you just tested with pain and weak, you changed a thought, I did the same exact thing, and now you tested strong and no pain.
That's so badass. I have to share with you. It's like you're from you being an expert in this area. It's validating an approach that I have with some of my clients that I coach, who have experienced some, gut issues. And it's, and we, gut issues are gnarly, you get bloated, and it's frustrating. And
Mm-hmm.
in some conversations, it's like, I'm so upset, I'm so frustrated because it's like, and it rightfully, like, it's so understandable. You're doing everything to within your knowledge, the best of your ability, but then you're still going through your days with this discomfort, this bloating and this is just something that I intuitively started to do in I mean, I'm in my 40s too, and I've been through a lot with my body. And so it just started, it's this self-love piece where I go, okay, hold on. We are a system of systems, right? There's no disconnect between I don't want, let me frame it like that. I don't want a disconnect between my body, like this flesh and all this, and my mind and me. I want to be very in what's the word? Whole and integrated, right? So I tell my girls, I'm like, hey, totally understand, validate, but why don't you try to just give your body some loving dialogue? Because if you think about it this way, your body is already fucking fighting right now. It's going through some shit. It's not your body's fault. Your shoulder It wasn't your shoulder's fault, and it wasn't even your fault in that moment. It was just where you were in your mind and your life in that moment. But when you think about, if somebody you loved was already going through something really hard, how would it feel to that somebody if you were just beating that somebody up for going through something hard? What the fuck is that going to produce? Nothing. And I swear, when I invite my girls to start, like, hey, however it sounds, my girls are like tuned into me, so it's fine. But, like, put your hand on your gut and just say, I love you. I got you. I know. Thank you. You're working through this. I got your back, and just having, and it helps them. It helps them. So I feel like, in a sense, that runs parallel to, like, it's just so with what you were just sharing, but I just felt like you validated, because you're testing, and this is your work as a constant, so you can see how it's showing up when you tweak the thought process and how that's affecting their actual, the physical part of their being as well. So badass.
100%. And when you're doing it with your clients, it's like you're taking them from fight or flight mode, and
Yes.
you're getting just calming them down, going more parasympathetic.
Right.
Yeah. So I combine that with breath work when I'm
Mhm.
working with the clients. And a lot of times, and one of my good mentors, Dr. Perry Nicholson, he stopped chasing pain, and he's big into lymph and all this stuff. It's like the gut is like a second brain,
Yeah.
like brain fog versus gut issues and vice versa, chicken and egg thing. Like
Yeah.
it messes with our heads too. Then we
Mhm.
get anxious, then we get upset, then we're beating ourselves up because we don't feel good. We're in fight or flight mode. So we probably changed our breathing. Now we get more to the physical side.
Right.
And it's a snowball effect of all of it.
Which is why, again, I mean, it's so important to put voices like yours on the fucking microphone to get out there, because I think we are in, we're living now in a time where transformation and this kind of higher consciousness and more awareness is starting to become more present. But
Finally.
this, right, finally, and I, like, when I kind of look back, I'm like, okay, I understand. Like, I can see it's almost like we move so far away from, I mean, your whole business, primal, from that primal living, which, we've moved so far away from it. And in some ways, I get it. I can see why that happened for us to develop ourselves to have the society that we're living in today. Fine. But we went too fucking, we're way out there. And now we're trying to, like, come back and integrate these important primal ingredients to keep us whole, to keep us healthy, to keep us, thriving and not just fucking surviving. And so someone like you, who is an authority in this space, who has an approach to this whole holistic, way of wellness, really, it's just important because, again, I want to give people credit and say, a lot of it is just a lack of awareness. Most people aren't going to be thinking, hey, you know what, it's a good idea, let me, consult with Megan and just have her, guide me through some breath work, so I have that inside out tool to take me out of, fight or flight and move me into parasympathetic, which is such a fucking powerful tool, especially in this day and age. Or
Oh,
just to, like, check out my body, like, is anything showing up? I mean, when we did a Zoom with my calf, like, you reminded me, like, hey, just, throughout the day, like, check in with your belly breath, because I forget exactly how you framed it, but it was something that pertained to the fact that I was injured. And
mhm.
so, there, I could be breathing more from my chest because of that. Forgive me for not remembering it exactly, but all to say that approach, your approach, holistic, it needs to be understood and heard more, that this is an important approach to living if you would like to not just survive, but to optimally thrive for as long as you fucking can in this life. You have that lens is very important. Therefore, so is your voice. So,
And
so
I think
important.
the medical world, or everything had gotten to defensive medicine. Everyone's
Yeah.
trying to protect their butts. Everyone's just treating the symptoms and patching things up. And
Yep.
for me, my foundation is, well, why? Anytime I'm with a client, well, why do you feel this way? Let's break down what was happening in your life when this started happening. Was there a stressor at home? Was there a stressor at work? did you even realize that maybe you didn't like your boss, and every time you're around your boss, you were on eggshells and you were moving differently, and that snowballed into how you're feeling physically.
Right.
So it's always like, they come in with neck pain, I can rub your neck or give you some exercises, but if we don't address the full picture, is it really going to change? You might feel better for a little bit. And that's the hard part, because there's still this, I wouldn't want to say stigma with PT, like it has to be insurance based and all this stuff.
Yeah.
It's more of, there's still practices out there. Like I've had people come to me, they're like, this isn't PT. I'm like, well, this is what it should be.
Right.
But it's not cookie cutter. It's not like, oh, your knee hurts, go do these exercises, get a hot pack, then put stim on, then do this. I'm like, if I hear that they did that, I'm like, no, they were just trying to bill insurance and be able to see 3-4 people at a time. And I was like, I'm sorry you went through that. I'm glad you're finally here. But we need to actually work on your core, your breathing, and your toe.
God, where were you in fucking 1997 when I blew my knee out? I had 3 knee surgeries, and you just literally took me back. I can see myself. It's almost traumatic on that stupid bike. In
warm up for 10 minutes, then come over, do these exercises. Then we'll massage it for a little bit, and then we'll put some.
Megan, I was so fucking bored and I didn't want to go. And you know what happens when we don't go and we're not actually properly rehabilitating? I had 3 knee surgeries. Maybe it could have possibly been 2, but yeah, I mean, that's so valid. And so, I mean, I know it in my own life experience that, it's ineffective. So I love your approach. It's important to, again, just to put this out there for people to realize it's a shift of perspective. It's reframing this in a different way. And go ahead.
Word. You just said the word reframing it. That's what we have to do. We have to reframe things, whether it's our thoughts, it's our actions,
or our body,
our belief, our body, all of it is, if we just reframe and tweak it a little bit, it can change the whole trajectory of where we're going.
Right. I always say, was like, I got this downloaded from my muse, my highest self, in my meditation one day years ago, but she was like, wherever you're looking is where you're going. And it's so simple, so succinct. And it's like, that was just a fucking emotional neutralizer. Cause I remember in that moment I was feeling kind of troubled, but it was like, whoa. It's the way that you're looking at this. Wherever you're looking, you're taking yourself. So be mindful is that if you don't want to be going that way, then we need to reframe this situation and position it in a, so that you are moving in a direction that you want to be moving in. So that's so important. Something that I really also want to dive into with you is the fact that you are a fucking athlete and you are a badass athlete. You started competing or doing CrossFit 2014, right?
I think so. Yeah. I think 14. No, 16.
16. Okay.
Yeah.
What drew you to CrossFit? I'm curious.
It's funny. So I was still working at that bigger practice, and we were like the medical support for this competition. Mm-hmm. And me being a little competitive, we're all there, and I'm seeing these people do stuff. I'm like, if they could do that, I could do that. I'm like, come on. That's why I ended up doing an Ironman. I was working at the Ironman, and these people doing an Ironman, I'm like, if they're doing it, I could do one. So I did an Ironman. But we were the support staff. And then I'll be totally honest, there was 2 other girls. They were newer grads, and they were like, I'm going to sign up for it. I'm like, if they're doing it, I need to sign up. I'm going to beat them. Just admitting how competitive I am. That's today. So I signed up for the scale division and had no clue what I was doing. I was like reverse curling for clean, like didn't know how to do a pull up. Like I could do like a strict 1 maybe, but these girls were like banging out all these pull ups. So I had no clue. Met this other doctor that was on the staff there, like supporting. And he was like, no, you need to go see my coach. All right. So I go see his coach. I'm like, so I did that first competition, and it was a qualifier. So I qualified for the finals. I'm like, I don't want to look like an idiot out there and not know how to do any of these movements. Yeah. So I hired the guy to be my coach, to teach me how to do things so I wouldn't look like an idiot. Go to this other competition. Some guy comes up to me and he's like, I know you. And he's like 6'5", huge tattoos everywhere. And I was like, no, I don't know you. I would know you by those tattoos. And he's like, no, we know each other. We've known each other somehow in life, or we're going to know each other. And I'm like, oh, okay. All right. So he grabbed my phone, he like found his Instagram handle, like put it in, started following, messaged me. He's like, so when are you going to come take a class? Didn't know he had owned a gym in New Jersey.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's like, why don't you come to like the 9:30 class? I'm like, is that all the moms? Like, I'm not coming just to work out with the moms. Little did I know there's like a bunch of badass women. And the first class to come in, like I had to do scaled version, and these other women are like going up and down the ropes, doing all this stuff. And that's kind of how it started. And I've always been someone that I need like goals of like either a competition or some kind of date that I need to get something done by. Like I always did, or a team that we're doing something together. So CrossFit was like perfect. So it was like competitive, a little more fun than just working out by yourself. Met a cool group of people, started doing it. And that's kind of how I ended up where I'm at here in California. Just dropped in a gym with a friend and met some people, and I ended up treating one of the guys, and he's like, you treat totally different than any PT I've ever seen. And that's where it all kind of took off. He's like, we'd love to have you at the gym.
Wow. So that's amazing.
How it all happened. And so it's been what now, 5 years?
5 years. CrossFit? And you're not competing anymore, or you are?
So I did the open, which is like everyone worldwide does it. You submit your scores, and then depending on your score, you move on to the next round.
Oh, okay.
Then we just finished that. And so it used to be, you had to be top 200.
Okay.
For masters, at least. It's like, I just moved up to the 40 to 44 age group.
Okay.
So you need to be top 200. They changed it to top 10%, which was so much easier. So moving on to that, May 6th will be like the next round. And then I'll do like some smaller local competitions just for like fun.
That's cool.
I don't think I'm ever going to be like one of the games athletes, but it's always because CrossFit's something. There's always something that you can get better at. There's always something you can try to learn to do and get stronger. So it's never like you're going to master the sport.
Right.
Right. That there's always
growth.
Yeah.
I mean, that's jujitsu for me. You're never like how I frame it. And this is so, where the time period that I grew up, but like, you ain't never getting to the center of the Tootsie Pop. That commercial, like that, like you can't, there's just so many layers to jujitsu, which is truly one of the greatest reasons why it's an addiction for me. And it's great to learn about CrossFit, because to be honest, like, I don't know much about CrossFit, except in my makeup career days, I got hired to do this. It was a CrossFit video, and it was like a two-day shoot. And I just remember looking, and I was like, what? Like, it was like, they were going, I mean, granted it's for a video too, but I think that is, CrossFit is like, I mean, it's just cool to learn about it. Cause I know it's intense. Let's just leave it there. It's fucking intense, and it's pushing yourself at an intensity, really as a constant. Is that correct? Or?
It depends on the type of workout. Some workouts might be for loads. Some might be do as many reps as possible in this amount of time.
Yeah. Like
sometimes people say, oh, you're going to get hurt doing CrossFit. It's like, well, no, if you're smart about it, like how's your foundational moving pattern? Patterns. Like if you have good movements, then load it. And then if you can still do it loaded and you can do it fast, that's amazing. When people start getting super competitive and then they're like, I don't care, I just want to beat the next person, and they sacrifice form, like, you're setting yourself up to get hurt. Or if they don't have good coaching, they are squatting horribly and the coach isn't calling something out and they're letting them load 200-300 pounds on the bar with crappy form, then you're going to get hurt. So like any sport, like there's risk for injury. It's not because CrossFit's bad. Like what CrossFit is amazing. It's a matter of good coaching, good guidance, and checking your ego at the door sometimes, and not trying just to one up the person next to you, where every once in a while you want to do that. But but it's keeping it in check. When I talk about the ego, which is not that often, but I'm like, no, I have a very healthy relationship with the ego. In my opinion, we have ego for a reason. We would never have been to the fucking moon and do all these great things. Like ego is what drives us in so many ways, but it's really about like managing that relationship. Right. And I'll use jiu-jitsu as a great example.
you check your ego at the door, which doesn't mean that you don't want to tap someone out or experience, your arsenal of weapons, but it's where you're leading yourself from. And that is, if you're operating from an overactive ego in that way, then yeah, it's dangerous. It's dangerous for you. It's dangerous, in jujitsu for somebody else. But I think that's a beautiful thing to put in there, because I know, a lot of people turn to CrossFit as a mean, especially because it is so goal oriented. Let's just say somebody who's like, I want to get fit, and they don't have any frameworks, and they're not, they need a stimulus that's exciting. Obviously, I think there's the team aspect is also really supportive to this energy of like to keep momentum going. So I can see, sorry, go ahead.
No, it's like a community. Like you have a
Right.
community of people that hold you accountable. Like you make friends and you want
Yeah.
to show up because they're going to be there. So not only are you having fun
Yeah.
socializing, but you're also, and so there's different gyms that they're not competitive and it's more of a social thing.
Yep.
Where like me, and I'm more on the competitive side, like I don't do the classes. I have a group of like 4 people and we do it in between the classes on our own. And we have like a bigger, more intense training program.
Yeah.
And we have to check our ego every once in a while. Like, okay, this workout, yes, we're competing and we're trying to see how far we can push ourselves. No, these other workouts, I want it to be great form. And we're just working on getting through the movements with clean, fluid movement, and pushing ourselves in a different way.
That's
So
awesome.
you just have to have those goals and like, know, okay, what's my goal with this workout? Where it's not beat yourself up every single day. My body would be torn to pieces if I was doing that every single workout every day.
Okay, hold on. I love that you just brought us here, because that's something I want to talk about. It's interesting, I think when somebody sees a fit, we'll just say women, we're talking about women. I'll use myself. Now, it's hard. Okay, I should preface by saying it's hard for me. My standards and my levels, they're not mediocre. So for me, I look at myself and I can, like, just my training, I'm like, dude, I'm not beast mode. There are days for sure where I'm like, it's a beast mode day, but as a whole, no way. Fuck, man. People have no idea. There's so much more chill involved in this game of training for me. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that, well, first of all, I don't thrive off of, going 200 miles per hour all the time anyways. That's just over masculine energy. It's just not naturally what turns me on. Do I like moments of fucking hardcore sprint, like, yeah, let me test myself? Absolutely, for sure. But a lot of my training, or my movement rather, in the week, there's just so much more. There's, restorative days, lots of walking, where some people might be surprised because they can see a physique, right? And obviously diet has a lot to do with it too, but the automatic assumption, because I get this all the time, and I would like to know if you get this as well. And then I want to talk about this. People ask me all the time, oh, you work out, every day, all day, or like, they just think it's like this hardcore, constant level fucking 10. And I'm like, no, it's not. Do you get the same thing?
All the time. And in my body, so everyone, like COVID, I
Yeah.
actually went the other direction. I actually lost 10, 15 pounds during it all. And everyone's like, what did you do? And like, if I really look about it, I had the time to focus on my recovery. I had the
Yes.
time to go for more walks. Like for me going, like when we were initially locked down, like I was going for 2-3 hour walks, listening to podcasts. So I was outdoors by the beach, walking, so much happier, like just down regulating my system.
Yep.
For me, like some of the weight that I held on to was more like cortisol stress weight.
Yes.
And then I get my little pup and I got my puppy, and next thing you know, I'm dropping more weight.
Right.
And it's more, I'm happy. Like
the oxytocin.
Yeah. And it's not like I was an emotional eater. I can be an emotional eater. The day I got the dog, it was gone.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
I was
Serotonin,
just like, yeah,
oxytocin.
One of my other patients just messaged me. He's like, it's so true. He's like, my body fat is down 5% since I got the dog, and I've done nothing differently. It's just, I'm so happy.
Well,
Uh,
even I was just looking this up the other day. When it's known, like if someone's falling in love, or even if they're just feeling really attracted, like in a brand new situation, the appetite is lost. I love neurobiology and like fucking hormones and neurotransmitters. I'm like, what? I want to know the mechanism, like what's actually happening. And what I have discovered through reading was just that it comes down to those neurotransmitters, serotonin. You don't feel the need to eat because you feel so satisfied with these kind of happy, feel good hormones. So it makes perfect sense that unfolded for you in that way. Also, like the stress factor, just,
mhm.
Jason Phillips, who's such a G in this conversation. I just had him on the podcast and he talks about that a lot. And I can say that in my own body composition, um, I experienced the same thing when I started to kind of roll it back, which doesn't mean I'm just sitting on the couch. And no, it's like the intensity when it started to become more harmonized with lower intensity, lactic acid, water, like and all of a sudden you're fucking ripped, like on another level.
I'm like, this is great. Like,
I
I'm sleeping great. Like I'm at least 8 hours
Yes.
a night. I'm trying. Last night I couldn't
Mhm.
fall asleep, but that was my head was racing, and I'm like, all right, time to meditate, and breathe, whatever.
Yeah.
And we're not all perfect. There's days where it's not great, but we have the tools to reel it back in. Be like,
Yeah.
I let myself get off for a day. I let my head run the races or whatever. I need to reel it back in, shut it all down,
Mhm.
and just start over. And that's the nice part. Like I've learned over the years, like you don't have to let it be that cycle that just controls you. Like you have the control to stop it
Yeah.
and then get back in touch with where we need to be, whether I go for a long walk,
Mhm.
just get outside. And that's part, when I moved here, I knew it was going to be more expensive living right by the beach. And I said, I don't care. For me, it's worth it. Like my place I'm in now, I can stand up and see the water, from my yard. Like that's something where that's just my happy place. Like for me, all I have to do is I'm a little stressed, go and look at the ocean.
Same,
Like
girl.
little
Literally
things.
the
Like,
same.
and my family's like, my brother's like, why don't you move back home? Come on. Like the beach is nearby. It's an hour away. I'm like, no, like I can see it from my backyard. Like that for me, it's like, these are the things that are not negotiable. Like I
Okay,
need,
wait, hold on. We got to talk about that because I've listened to you talk about this and I have so much love and respect for you in this way. Like you have boundaries. I have them like I have them so firmly positioned as an entrepreneur. It's important to say this. And I feel like you're totally going to resonate with this. It's almost more dangerous when you are building a business from pure passion, purpose, and vision, is how I frame it. I'm pulled to work. I'm not pushed. It's not a force. So there's always more to do, especially in the building, phase. There's always more to do. And if you don't, and that's just one aspect of like assigning boundaries, because obviously there's so many ways to assign boundaries. If you don't assign boundaries and have your non-negotiables, you're setting yourself up for illness, for burnout, for all those things, just to be an unhappy person. So I would love for you to talk about the importance of that and how you know, protect the things that make you feel really good and how that really does impact the rest of your life, even specifically how you get to show up for your clients at work.
so for me, like some of the, like my boundaries or what has to happen, like I block my schedule every day from 2 to 5.
Mhm.
2 to 5, finish clients around 2, decompress a little bit, mobilize, do some work. Between 3 and 5, that's my training time. Like sometimes to 5:30, sometimes if I need to go longer, but I'm not going to be the best PT and I'm not going to show up and be present if I know I'm missing workouts. And
Yeah.
I don't want to, like, for me, I don't feel as good moving early in the morning. Like I've done the early morning workouts before a full day and it just doesn't feel good. So for me, 2 to 5 is my time.
Mhm.
Like clients will be like, can I come at 2, come at 3? And then I start feeling guilty that I don't have time available during that lock. But guess what? Thursday's my one day,
Yeah.
2 to 5 is open. So guess what? You're going to have to come. And I used to change my schedule sometimes for a client. And I'm like, you know what? No, and then I get resentful and all this stuff. I'm like, no, that's my time. That's why I opened up my own business so I could do that. Because when I'm training and when I'm pushing hard, and it's not always hard, but
Yeah.
focus or
Yeah.
have, my plan, because I have a coach that helps me go through all that. So that's one, like my time, being by the beach, you know, being around animals. Now that I used to volunteer and go and work with horses and stuff before I actually had the pup. So something that's just my happy place. Like I know, like if I don't have those things, I'm not going to be the best version of myself when I'm showing up.
I love that, girl. I'm so with you on that. I'm like, yes. It's this whole picture, and it's knowing what you really need, identifying your needs to feel whole, to feel, healthy, and for you to continue to thrive. It's so important. And we're so aligned, the beach is my backyard, or one of them rather. And, my training, my sleep, yeah, that shit, it's not getting fucked with. Like I have a hard out at the end of the day. I'm not talking to you. I'm not texting, but unless it's an emergency, I'm certainly not answering an email. But this is what allows this, steady state of joy. And you can read when an individual is like genuinely operating life more dominantly from a state of joy. And it's like, well, why is that? It's not just because, oh, there's money in the bank. No, it's this whole picture. And a lot of that, to keep this whole picture in a beautiful, feel good state comes down to your boundaries. So that was really important. I wanted to pull that out of you and put that in this conversation. Okay. A couple things, because I can't believe how fast time is flying. I mean, I can actually, because we could just, one thing that I do, I think it would be a disservice to not talk about this subject with you is I just want to tap into being a strong woman, like being a physically strong woman, and how that supports you in your life. There's a skill transfer, right? Like I talk about it a lot. When I feel my strength deadlifting, it just reminds me, especially in areas where I don't feel maybe as strong in that moment or whatever, it just reminds me of how capable I am. I would love for you to talk about that, just being strong, the importance of it, even how I know we mentioned CrossFit, but if there's a couple tips that you can offer, I know our girls who watch and listen to this podcast are women who are really, just looking for more ways to keep themselves so strong and resilient. So I would love to pick at your genius in this space.
When you said that, the first thing that came to mind is like, sometimes I relate a barbell, whatever weight, to life. Like it's going to push us down. It sucks sometimes. We're going to get back up. And I might fail many, many times before I have the strength to get that one rep or whatever it is, but I'm not going to let it stop me from trying. Like those are goals. Then when I don't get it, I'm like, I'm getting it next time. But being a super competitive, strong woman, like I think also I could be very intimidating to men when it comes through that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
and
go there, girl.
The right person or the right crowd that isn't intimidated. Like you need to find those people that are like, fuck yeah, like I want you in my life type of thing. Not someone like, I got to text someone wanting to meet for coffee. The successful person wants to like, oh, I want to take you out for lunch coffee. And then I posted a video of me lifting and he's like, oh shit, I think you're stronger than me. And crickets. I'm like, well, guess what? He's intimidated. Goodbye. Like,
right. Thank you for saving me the effort and energy of, investing in you.
And it's taken a lot of work for me to get to where I'm at today. I've never been like this. I used to let people walk all over me back years ago when I didn't know boundaries. And that's a learning process. Like you learn. And then the next time it happens, you're like, nope, that's not happening ever again.
Yeah.
Like, and you learn, but it's one of those things where when I changed careers too, like I started working, like being a PT, I'm manually working on people. Like I have athletes that come and see me, and I was in a relationship with someone where I was so excited to tell them how my client felt so good, was out on the ice skating the next day. And he's like, oh, he's a hockey player. What he hurt? I'm like, oh, he pulled his groin. He's like, oh, did you have to touch his groin? I'm like,
oh no.
I did. And he's like, was he good looking? And I'm like, yeah, going there. And I was like, he was 16. His dad was right there with us. Like, but then I realized that person in my life that I was dating was very insecure with me.
Yeah.
Being super passionate, working with someone else with their passion of getting them back on the ice or whatever sport. And that relationship, that was a hard thing where they weren't comfortable with
Yeah.
my passion and my skill set. And so instead of lifting me up and pushing me to do better, they were wanting to like push me back down.
Yeah.
And so I've realized like I need someone in my life that's going to one support everything about me in
Mhm.
there, or be okay with, yes, you might be stronger than me in some ways.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm helping other people, and I get, we have to talk about life and personal stuff in my sessions, and they need to be okay with it. So it's been interesting because not everyone's cut out to
Uh,
be able to handle that.
I feel you, girl. I feel you hardcore. It's, and it's so important to hold yourself steady in you, to be very rooted and say like, you're not going to dim your light, you're not going to decrease your strength, you're not coming down. You
No.
you have to hold yourself in that position. And I think it is an interesting thing because, I've said this before, but we in I mean, again, we're so close in age, but so growing up, I mean, we didn't have strong is beautiful. No,
Yeah. No.
no, no. I
No, you
and I
wanted
had
a thigh gap, and I'm like, no, I don't want a thigh gap. I need to catch whatever food. No, I'm just kidding.
no, but it's funny because when I was younger and I had shoulders and I had definition because I'm a mesomorph and it was just part of my, it's my design. And I was an athlete, I was a competitive runner, and at one point I was doing more fucking pull-ups than my brothers, at one point.
Yeah.
And I would be so offended when guys would be like, you're so ripped, you're so buff. Like, I just don't like the words at the time. I'm like, because again, it's like I have so much feminine energy that's just so, and I don't have to defend my feminine energy, but in that period in my life, for sure, I did feel more defensive too, because I'm like, yo, if you want to compliment a girl, for this is how I would literally correct them. Like, you could say I'm fit, you can say you look great, but I don't want to hear I'm buff. Okay.
Yeah.
Because to my mind back then, it was like, no, I don't want to hear that. And a lot of that has just, I mean, when I started lifting heavy weights, because I used to be very cardio heavy because because of that, and truth be told, because there was a period after the injuries where I had gained weight. And so, yeah, I had muscle, but I also had this weight over it. And that just made me feel like fucking husky. And I just wasn't, and I'm not, I'm
Yeah.
5'4" more. So I stay, and my brothers would tell me lift the weights, and I'd be like, no, and oh God, man, I wish I started lifting heavier weights earlier because we know what happens. And yeah.
Yeah.
But beyond the body composition changes and the ownership that actually started to unfold for me, like now, if some guy's like, you're so buff, I'm like, yeah, whatever, I earn this shit. But what was really powerful was the mindset pivot and the skill transfer there. Just knowing, when shit gets hard, I can carry that weight and I can do it with grace.
Yep.
That's so important.
Mhm.
And it's so, it's like one of those messages you just want to put on loudspeaker for women. Especially because it's not like we're fully out of this space where, the girl just and to each his own. I'm not judging anybody's, wherever you want to be with your body, that's up to you. And I'm not saying that this way is the right way or wrong, but there are the girls who like do not want, and by the way, and I worked in, fashion, celebrity, makeup, like, shoulders on a woman.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
No.
that shit doesn't translate nice in a photo. And so there's a lot of
That's
girls,
I
but
do.
I'm like this, like, I always think like if you had to fucking run for your life or pick some shit up or jump that fence, you need the arm to be able to do that. I mean, adrenaline will get you far, but like combine that with strength
Yeah.
and, so anyways,
Oh yeah. No,
yeah.
that just made me laugh because I did a photo shoot, and like, oh my, I loved all the fitness ones, and then the lifestyle pictures. I'm just
Yeah,
like,
you got it.
I'm
Yeah.
not good at that stuff. I'm not good at looking girly. Like I try, but like some of the angles, my arm looked like bigger than my body. I'm like,
Well, that's kind of on the photographer too. I mean, I'm going to just say that,
yeah.
I mean, yeah, it is teamwork, but at the end of the day, if you're not a professional model and you're an athlete, I mean, and I've worked with so many world-class athletes in my, makeup career.
Yeah.
And, you could have the most like just amazing, we're talking like ESPN body issue cover, and you got to capture it the right way because otherwise it could not give real credit to what the actual body looks
Oh,
like. But
100%.
as a woman, it's just a really interesting thing to, to be a strong. I mean, the first thing I think I said to you when I met you, to our girl Gabrielle, was like,
Yeah.
"Fuck your shoulders," it's like, because shoulders to me really, they really say something. They really, I feel like they
They
say.
put in some work.
I
Like,
was just
yeah,
gonna say exactly. Thank
yeah.
you. You're doing it. You're doing it well because it looks incredible. So, anyways, that was something I just had to touch on. I can go into so many more layers of that with you, but I want to be mindful of our time. So, before I kind of phase this out, and I have a few rapid fire words that I like to throw at my guests. Before I even go there, is there anything that you would like to live in this conversation? Maybe it's something you wish people would ask you more about, or something that, if you could put it up on a billboard, you would, or just something that you feel is important to live in this conversation outside of everything. I mean, we've talked about so much, but so no pressure if there's not, but I just love to ask that question in case there is.
I think now, like looking at just where I'm at with everything, like I want people, like, one is their history, like as amazing or as horrible as it could be, is why they are who they are today. And, I've gone through some crazy hard ass stuff in my life, but I don't regret any of it because it made me who I am today. So if you look at that as movement wise too, like be open to whatever you went through, forgiving yourself for it. And then, like, if you want help with movement or any other kind of stuff, like we said, unlocking your potential, like that's something that I'd love to be able to do for someone else.
Yeah.
Like, so letting people be okay with that and knowing there's probably so much more they can do to feel better. So it's more of unlocking, the why behind things and being open to that. Some people might think it's super weird or whatever, but just as long as you're open to it, that's where the magic happens. Like,
Yeah.
stuff that you never think would happen can change in your life by just being open.
Right. I love that. Weird. I mean, it was probably weird when people were talking about going to the moon for the first time, right? Like all the weird shit, not all the weird shit, but a lot of the things that were weird end up being, some of the biggest breakthroughs and important, historical events in our life and just, creation. So I love it. I just had to pick on
Like,
that a little bit
don't
because
wait for stuff to get bad. Don't wait for you to feel like crap. Like,
yeah,
stuff you can do now to prevent you from ever feeling crappy and to just move and live like your best life. Like, it sounds silly, like live your best life. Like, no, that's actually real. Like, you have the power to do that.
you fucking do. I love it so much. It's so simple and true. Okay. It makes me wonder. So, one question that I love to ask my guests is if you had a magic wand and you can give the masses one positive habit that would have a large ripple effect through their life, what would it be and why?
Oh, I'm stuck between two.
Go for it.
Either being able to reframe their thoughts like that to like just positive thoughts
Mhm.
and get rid of the negative, or every single person being able to connect with a proper breath, because that changes everything.
That's amazing. Both, I mean, those are so important. Yeah. Breath, man. It's, what I learned from Andrew Huberman. God, I don't want to mess this up. I'm just going to fucking go for it. But it was like your diaphragm, I think if I've heard this right, it was like the only organ that you actually, your mind can communicate to your diaphragm, and your diaphragm will actually comprehend the message and be able to respond to it. Right. Um, I may have messed that up, but I just remember when I heard whatever that was in that context, I was like, that is so fucking fascinating. So true. When you are able to communicate to your mind, to ultimately to your nervous system, to, put your breath to get out of fight or flight and to get into the parasympathetic. I mean, that's a huge tool. Right?
Huge. When you can control that,
Yeah.
you can control so much more. Like,
Right.
think of diaphragm. If we, like I said to you, if we breathe 15 to 20,000 breaths a day, that's 15 to 20,000 reps. Either you're doing well or you could do better. And, you could be doing them crappy and not, like, that's 15 to 20,000 reps of stimulating not only pelvic floor, core, diaphragm, intestines, every organ, all that stuff, all your systems, gut, everything. Like if you're doing it crappy versus if you're doing it well, like how much better you can feel. So all my clients are shocked when they come in and we work on breathing. They're like, really? And I'm like, look how it changed everything. They're like in shock. And I was like, and you have control of that. It's just, you have to consciously make a decision to work on it every day.
Boom. So good. Okay. Rapid fire words, girl. So you don't have to be rapid. You just, whatever comes top of mind, top of heart, when you take these words in, I just would love for you to share. Ready? First word is love.
Self. So that's always a work in progress, but how much better it is when you can truly love yourself.
Truly. So good. Fear.
Oh, my stomach just hurt. No, because that's that gut feeling you get sometimes when you let it control you.
Yeah.
And it's not always real.
Right.
You know, fuck everything and run, or face everything and rise. Like those are those two sayings. Like, which one are you going to do?
Yeah.
And some days we're better at one than the other, depending on what it is.
Totally. So good. Curiosity.
Oh, it's like, you want to know more? Do you want to go there? Is it going to be healthy for me or not? I have to sit back and be like, okay, do I really need this, or is it a want?
Oh my gosh. That just made me so, I can't wait to come down and hang out with you. I'm so excited. Girl time. So needed. Okay. Next word is challenge.
Oh, it's just life of living. Like you said. I mean, every day is a challenge, but it's so good. And I need a challenge. Like I thrive on having challenge. Like some people are like, why do you make things so difficult? I'm like, I don't know. I like it the hard, expensive way. Like there's easier routes sometimes, but I don't like to take those routes, I guess.
Yeah. I call it the scenic route.
Yeah.
It's also the authentic route, because it's like, if that's what's truly driving you and, you know, exciting you, well, then fucking don't take a shortcut.
Yeah.
You know? So good. Courage.
Courage. Taking that leap of faith. Like for me, moving out here, like packing up a U-Haul and driving across country. Like I had to have the courage, like couldn't fall back on my family, couldn't just move back in with them if I needed help, like doing it all on my own.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So good. Passion.
Just the fact that I could do what I love every single day, like it's my passion, like being able to help people. And I always just have to remember to help myself first so I can help others though. Because I think a lot of times we forget, especially when we're in like a caregiver type of role. That's where sometimes the burnout happens, because you're forgetting to take care of yourself.
It's so true.
First, and be selfish. Like, some people don't think being selfish is healthy. I mean, there's to an extent, but we're not taking care of ourselves. How are we going to care for someone else?
Totally. I mean, that's just a play on word, right? With the word, because obviously I think it's the framework around selfish. You can look at it this way, and that's, you know, I care about nobody but me. Or you look at it this way and go, if I care about me to the fullest extent, I can care about you, world, anybody to the fullest extent. And so that may mean that I need to selfishly, you know, uphold these boundaries to be able to do that. Yeah. Love it. Okay. 2 more words. One of my favorites, resilience.
Oh, getting back up. Every time we get knocked down, just getting back up.
Yeah. Rocky.
So, and that's the slogan with our life's on the bar. Like, that's why, like, I have little things I say, and like, I'm a Christian, and you know, there's times when my faith is great. There's times when it's not, but every time I step up to a hard task, you know, I have a little saying, and I say, I can do all things through him. And whatever him is, or it is for anyone in this world, whatever you relate to, like, I can do all things. So.
I love it. I love it. Final word, girl, excellence.
What we're all striving for, but we all have within us. That's the first thing that I think.
Love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
It's just, how can we let it show?
Yeah. Express it. So good. Meghan, you're amazing. I'm so grateful. We finally, thank you.
I know, the day you walked into Dr. Gabrielle's, I was like, I need to know her.
I know.
It was about you.
Oh, thank you. Well, she's such a great connector. Oh God, I love her so much. And you know, I've seen you before, because that was already a while ago. but you had been on her stories so many
Yeah.
times, and it's like anybody Gabrielle says or is into, it's like you're backdoored, you've gone through, the initial, because I trust you, because I know my girl, right? So shout out to our girl Gabrielle, love
Yes.
you.
Mommy
And
two now. Ugh.
I know, I can't wait to meet the little one. um get her back down south.
I
uh
know.
can't wait. So, but yeah, before we say goodbye officially, can you guide our watchers, our listeners, how do they stay connected if they want to work with you, whether it's virtually, in person, best places to stay connected to you?
So my website's primalstrengthpt.com. So on there, you can email me right on there, or you can book right on there, or find me on Instagram, Primal Strength Doc, DOC. So those are the two best ways. And then you can email through there. Hopefully internet or Instagram.
Yeah. Well, and I just want to add that your Instagram is so valuable. You put so much valuable content there. So for people who, want to be able to learn more about mobility, and you give so many techniques. Yeah, I mean, your videos are so valuable. So thank you. And really, this is important for me to say. Also, just girl, thank you for being such a fucking badass contributor. Honestly, operating from your most authentic self and being a representative of that authenticity. We need more of that in life. You are a healer. You are so, just from like woman to woman, you're like, I have chills right now. You're like, you're a woman supporter. Not to say that you don't support men, but it's like,
Yeah.
it's like you've from day one, there's just this badass energy that I've always felt is like loving and supportive to me. And it's so fucking mutual. So I just want to take this moment to honor you and thank you for being such an incredible woman, an amazing friend, and fucking contributor to our world. You're the shit.
Oh,
So
thank you. Love you.
love you. All right, everyone. You guys know what to do. Stay connected to this badass, and we will catch you on the next one.